Operator overloading allows you to redefine the function of certain operators, such as plus, minus, or equals, so that they do specific things in the context of the classes you use them in that they wouldn't normally be able to do. Why would you want to do this? Because it can save you a lot of repetitive code when you're writing long programs. So, for example, if you wanted to add two array classes together, you would have to do a for loop every single time of array I equals array 1i plus array 2i every single time you wanted to add them together. Instead of that, it would be a lot easier if you could just write array 3 equals array 1 plus array 2, and you are able to do that with overloading by overloading the plus operator. There's a table here of all the different operators you can overload, but we're going to stick to our example with the plus operator. If we want to be able to use array 3 equals array 1 plus array 2, there's going to be two different ways we can do this. The first way is going to be operator overloading using a friend. When you operator overload with a friend function, you are defining a function outside of the class that is going to access the private values within the class. Now that would go against the very nature of object-oriented design. So you have to do some special things, and that is use a friend function. So there are 3 steps to doing this. First, and perhaps one of the more important parts, is that you need to declare the overloaded operator as a friend function within the class. If you leave this part out, this operator would not have access to the private values within the array. And you can see it's a friend function with the myArray return type, operator plus, that'll take 2 myArray arguments, array 1 and array 2, and it'll add them together. After that, you'll define your function outside of the class. It's not a member of this class, so it has a return type myArray, operator plus, the 2 arguments, and all it's doing is making a temporary array object, adding them together, and returning that array object. So that's part 2. And for part 3, you'll be able to just write array 3 equals array 1 plus array 2. And that will overload it so that you can add these things together. So we can try that out. Like this. And we can see array 1, array 2 are added together to array 3 here. The second way that you can overload an operator is by making it a member of the class, so overloading it as a member function. When you do that, there's no friend or anything else involved. You are just going to define this function as if it was any other function within a class. So it has the return type myArray, operator plus, and you'll notice this one only takes 1 argument. This is because when it's compiling, the compiler will take a look at this function being called, and it will get... The object will basically invoke this function on itself. So whenever you use the object and use this, it's as if you're using a getter. You're going to get the value, myArray.getValue, and then add it to something else. But instead of getting the value, you're just going to invoke an add function. So it makes a temporary array again, it adds them together. This is declared within the class, and then you would call it the same way. What the compiler is going to do is it's basically going to go array 3 equals array 1 dot operator plus, and take the parameter of array 2, and it will change whatever values were in array 1. It won't change them in this case, but it's going to use whatever values was in array 1. To do this, it's making use of what's called the this pointer. The this pointer is just a pointer that points to the object itself. So when an object has a pointer called this, it's just pointing to itself. And there's more information on that here if you need. So how do you know when to use what? In a lot of cases, you can do either, and it's simply a matter of preference which you find more comfortable and easy, but there are some situations where you do have to use one or the other. The first is if the left-hand side object is not one of the objects. If it's not an object on the left, you cannot do a member function overload because you wouldn't have this part where it's the object invoking the call. If it's not an object on the left, it has to be overloaded as a friend function. On the other hand, there are certain operators that you could only overload as member functions, such as assignment. You would not be able to set a non-member function equal to the same class, or pointers, or subscripts, or function calls. These will have to be overloaded as member functions. And there's more information on the difference between the two if you need it here.